Well, the mad scientists had just come on board and the excitement machine from the Gold Coast were tipped to do just about anything in 2024. But have they taken strides? Was the season a launching pad or a disappointment? Let's find out. This is the 2024 season review for the Gold Coast Titans. All right, so to break down the 2024 season for the Titans for me, we have our zero tackle expert analyst, Darren Parkin. How are you, mate?
Going well. I guess to answer the question off the top, it was probably a little bit of both. It was a disappointing season ultimately, but potentially a launching pad at the same time. They were really ordinary early, but started to build a bit of momentum, and almost identical season in terms of points for and against and wins and scoring and that type of thing. But there are a few signs that suggest that they've just tightened up some of the rough edges and they might be making progress, I think, heading into next year.
Yeah. Well, looking at that progress, they've gone from 9 wins in 2023 to 8 wins in 2024. So on paper, it doesn't look like there was a lot of progress, but how do you think the season sort of played out at a glance?
Yeah, if you break it down, I mean, they were 0-6, so probably the first team out of contention on the season. Then they built pretty well into the back half of the year, probably split their games from about round 6 or 7 onwards and had a really nice double. They had one of their best ever wins over the Broncos, which is always significant for them, and beating the other Queensland side, the Dolphins, as well. That was a little bit more of a tighter, controversial game, but the Broncos win will give them a bit of confidence. And whilst the win-loss was similar, and in fact marginally worse, there are a few statistics that suggest that they're on the right track. They can be a touch deceiving, but set completion at 82% was ranked equal first. They made the fewest errors of any side in the comp, fewest penalties conceded for the season. They conceded about 20 less line breaks. They missed about 50 less tackles, and they just started to make a few of those inroads that are a little bit harder to play against. So, I think if you dig deeper into the stats, that they were okay reading for what they might be doing. So.
Yeah, some interesting stat lines there. So let's take a look at the 2024 pass mark. All right, so plenty of excitement around the Titans coming into 2024. As we said at the top of the episode, they could have done anything this year. So what would their pass mark have been for 2024, and did they hit it?
Probably the hardest to assess because of the unpredictability of it all. I think their fans were pretty excited to get Des on board, who has got a proven record of, getting results and getting the best out of groups. But I think there was always an expectation it'd be a bit of a roller coaster. There'd be some bad days and some good runs as well, as they learnt from a master coach and tried to get that into play very quickly. They haven't reached a preliminary final since their inception in 2007, and the appointment of Des Hasler was seen as a bit of a get serious moment as they looked to tighten up what had been perceived as a soft underbelly. I think for about the last 6 or 7 years, they were the side most known for giving up sizable leads in matches and just dropping away badly. So I think what they wanted to do was build a solid base, and I think on that mark they've done so. That they're harder to play against, and it was never going to happen immediately. I think bouncing up to win 15 games was unlikely. I know we've seen that from teams like the Warriors in recent years, but I think they set a bit of a platform, and I'd be tempted to suggest they passed, even if the win-loss record says they didn't.
Yep. All right. So we'll give that kind of a pass.
Kind of, yeah.
Kind of a pass. All right. So let's see what went wrong on the Gold Coast in 2024 and take a look at the lowlights. All right, Darren, so looking at the lowlights, they were put on the back foot pretty early on in the season and, a couple of really bad performances. So what are the key lowlights for the Titans this year?
One of the keys for Des Hasler coach sides is defensive efforts, and I think he would have been scratching his head early in the season thinking, what have I signed up for? They were pretty loose at times. They went scoreless against the Sharks and got belted. Admittedly, the Sharks are a top 4 side, but couldn't get momentum. Injuries played a significant role. Their captain, Tino Fasumalawi, going down in round 2 with an ACL and missed the entire season. Jaden Campbell and AC Brimson, Hayley Smith-Shields missing large chunks of the season with injuries as well. So I think it hit them early when they were still learning the caper under a new coach. They lost experience, they were losing games, and that confidence hit they couldn't really recover from. They got rolling a bit later, but by then it was well and truly all over for their season.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of things they can learn from there, but let's take a look now at the highlights. All right, so as you said, really tough start to the season, but they did pull together a fair amount of highlights throughout the season. So
yeah, I think if you're looking at mindset going into a new season, it's probably better than the other way around. I mean, if you're 8-10 and lose your last 6, or if you're 0-6 and then go 8-10, you kind of feel like the momentum's heading in the right direction. But those 2 wins over the fellow Queensland sides late in the year against the Dolphins and the Broncos, so they probably played their best football over that last month. The win over the Broncos, one of the biggest in their history. The Broncos were playing for their season. They had to win that to have any chance of playing finals, and the Titans played their best footy in several years, probably beat them 46-18. So they end the Big Brothers season, put up a huge score that would have given them an enormous boost. And then the rest of their positives, probably some individuals. Alafiana Khan-Pereira, Jojo Fafita, 34 tries between them. They can play really entertaining, positive football. The Titans, they can be a really good side to watch, even if they're unpredictable. Brian Kelly enjoyed his best season in the centres. Chris Randall, Bo Firma, Aaron Clark. There were a lot of players that made pretty solid contributions, and veteran Kieran Foran led the team pretty well. He's not the same player that he was in terms of leg speed and stuff like that, but still very sharp in the mind and his reactions and decision making. So there was a bit to like, I think, on field for them.
Yep. Absolutely. So a lot of good names there in the highlight section. Now let's take a look at one name that we've named our most improved. All right, so most improved for 2024, Keno Keeney.
Yeah, 20-year-old. There was a fair bit of pressure on him despite his age at the start of the season to make that number 1 jersey his own, and within a matter of games it was absolutely certain that he was going to be doing that and leading them in the fullback role for the foreseeable future. He's a little bit undersized, but became a genuine jet over the course of the season, and I think he'll be serving them serving them very well for a number of years. And when they start playing finals regularly, whenever that may be, he'll be the one of the driving forces in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Hard not to root for him. So let's take a look now at the headlines. All right, so biggest story for the Titans this year was probably that murky situation with Fafita's contract.
Yeah, I mean, winning can hide some of this sort of stuff. I mean, if you're struggling for form, you get players that start to look elsewhere and the eyes wander around to other clubs, but also the way the club handles it. And there are times where it looked like they weren't sure what was going on, either the communication between player managers, between the player themselves, and it felt sometimes that they were almost the last to know. So he activated an option in his contract, David Fafita, which allowed him to test the market. He would eventually actually sign a contract with the Roosters, and that looked like, that was done. But he then backflipped on the deal and recommitted to the Titans to stay. Now, this exposed a lot of the disorganisation within the club, and it just looked messy. So it looked like they had no idea, but no control over that situation. And in the end, nothing happened. But the process was very messy.
Yeah, absolutely. Pretty confusing situation. I remember that story dropping throughout the year, and it was a very busy group chat that day. So let's look ahead now to 2025 and the passport. All right, so in 2025, they haven't moved much on the ladder from last year to this year. So you'd think for a pass mark in 2025, they'd be improving on that ladder position. Yeah,
by the end of the year, they'll probably middle of the road on form, so that puts them in that frame to double-figure win season and push into the lower part of the 8. I mean, Des gets a second pre-season to work on tightening them up, and as we mentioned right at the start, some of their numbers are tracking in the right direction in terms of less errors, less turnovers, harder to score against by the end of the year. So I think if they can avoid a horror start, their season was blown out of the water in the first 3 weeks with injuries and heavy losses. If they can just hang in there a little bit earlier, I think they'll build a bit of momentum, and they're certainly capable, I think, of challenging for a lower final spot. I'm not sure they'll break that prelim drought and finish top 4, but I think they could certainly see a bit of action in the middle of September.
Well, that wraps it up for our review for the Titans. Let us know in the comments if you think that under Des Hasler in year 2, the Titans will be able to make finals or just improve on that position. Remember to like and subscribe. We'll be doing season reviews for every team. We're also going to be looking ahead to 2026 to see which players your club should sign when that November 1 deadline comes along. So thank you, Darren.
No worries. It'll be a fascinating side, I think, and that will be a fascinating chat around the what they do post-November as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and catch all the latest NRL news at zerotackle.com.